Imagine waking up tomorrow, but something inside you is different. Your mind is clear. Your decisions are powerful. Fear no longer controls you. Self-doubt is gone. You move through life with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are. Now imagine something even more shocking. What if I told you that the only thing separating you from that version of yourself is programming? Because whether you realize it or not, your mind is already programmed. Programmed by your environment. Programmed by your past. Programmed by your fears. Programmed by the opinions of others. From the moment you were born, your mind began recording everything. Every word you heard, every failure you experienced, every moment you felt rejected, every time someone told you what you could or couldn't be, and slowly, without you realizing it, these experiences built the mental operating system that runs your life today. Most people never question it, they assume their thoughts are their own. But the truth is far more unsettling. Many of your beliefs are not yours at all. They were installed by teachers, installed by family, installed by society, installed by moments of pain that convinced you that you were not good enough. And the most dangerous part, once the mind accepts a belief, it begins searching for evidence to prove that belief is true. If somewhere deep inside you believe, I'm not capable, your brain will quietly sabotage opportunities. If you believe, people always leave, your mind will unconsciously push people away. If you believe, success is not meant for me, you will stop trying before you even begin. Not because you are lazy, not because you are weak, but because your mind is following a program. A program you never chose. But here is the most powerful truth you will ever discover. Your mind is not fixed. It is not permanent. It is not locked. Your brain is something extraordinary. It is adaptable. It is rewritable. It is capable of creating entirely new patterns of thinking. This ability is known as neuroplasticity. And it means something incredible. You can literally reprogram the way you think. You can dismantle old beliefs. You can install new mental patterns. You can train your brain to work for you instead of against you. But to do that, you must first understand something critical. Your mind has two powerful systems constantly shaping your reality: the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is the part of you that analyzes, the part that makes decisions, the part that says, I want to change my life. But the subconscious mind is far more powerful. It controls your habits, your emotional reactions, your fears, your automatic behavior, and it runs 95% of your daily actions. That means something astonishing. Most of what you do every day is not a decision. It is a program. You wake up the same way. You think the same thoughts. You react the same way to stress. You repeat the same patterns in relationships. You make the same excuses. And over time, these repeated patterns create something dangerous. They create a fixed identity. You begin saying things like, this is just who I am. I'm not disciplined. I'm bad with money. I'm not confident. I'm not lucky. But those statements are not facts. They're simply old programs repeating themselves. And the moment you understand that, something incredible happens. You stop seeing yourself as broken. And you begin seeing yourself as editable. Think about that for a moment. If your mind was programmed, it can be reprogrammed. If beliefs were installed, they can be uninstalled. If patterns were learned, they can be relearned. This realization is the beginning of true personal power. Because once you see the program, you can begin to rewrite it. But the process requires awareness. You must begin noticing the thoughts that repeat in your mind, the silent whispers that guide your actions. The inner voice that speaks when you face difficulty. For many people, that voice is harsh. It says things like, "You will fail, you're not ready, other people are better, don't embarrass yourself." But that voice is not your enemy. It is simply an old recording. A recording created from past experiences. And recordings can be replaced. But here is where most people fail. They try to change their life without changing their mind. They chase motivation. They chase productivity. They chase external success. But if the internal programming remains the same, the results never change. Because the mind always pulls you back toward your familiar identity. To create real transformation, you must change the internal code. And that requires a deliberate process. A process that begins with something simple: observation. Before you can rewrite your mind, you must first watch it. Notice your reactions. Notice your fears. Notice the stories your mind tells you. Because hidden inside those stories are the exact beliefs shaping your life. And once you see them, you gain the ability to question them. And questioning a belief is the first step toward destroying it. But what you are about to learn next may completely change the way you understand yourself. Because the mind doesn't just store beliefs, it builds entire identities around them. And unless you understand how identities are formed, you will unknowingly protect the very patterns that are holding you back. Every human being carries an invisible story. A story about who they are. A story about what they deserve. A story about what is possible for them. And this story silently shapes every decision they make. Some people carry stories of limitation. I always fail. I'm unlucky. I can't change. Others carry stories of power. I figure things out. I always grow. I become stronger every year. The difference between these two lives is not intelligence. It is not talent. It is not luck. It is identity. Your identity is the mental image you hold of yourself. And your brain will always try to act in ways that stay consistent with that identity. If your identity says, "I am disciplined," you naturally act disciplined. If your identity says, "I am weak," your brain finds ways to prove that belief true. This is why real transformation requires something deeper than motivation. It requires identity reconstruction. You must stop asking, "What should I do?" and begin asking, "Who must I become?" Because actions follow identity. And identity is programmable. But before we can install a new identity, we must destroy the old one. And that is where the real journey begins. There is a silent force that shapes every decision you make. Most people never notice it, but it is there, working quietly in the background. Guiding your habits, guiding your reactions, guiding your entire life. That force is identity. Identity is the story you believe about who you are. And whether you realize it or not, your brain works very hard to remain consistent with that story. If deep down you believe you are a confident person, you will naturally act in ways that reinforce confidence. But if somewhere inside your mind you believe, "I am not capable, I am not disciplined, I am not strong," your brain will quietly sabotage every attempt to prove otherwise. This is why so many people try to change their lives and fail. They try to change their actions, but they never change their identity. They try to wake up early, but their identity says, "I'm not a morning person." They try to become disciplined, but their identity says, "I'm lazy." They try to become successful, but their identity says, "People like me don't succeed." And every time they try to move forward, their subconscious mind pulls them back toward the familiar version of themselves. It is not because they lack effort. It is not because they lack desire. It is because the brain always protects identity. Think about this carefully. Your brain would rather remain consistent than successful. Because consistency feels safe, even if that consistency is painful. This is why people stay in toxic relationships, why they stay in jobs they hate, why they repeat destructive habits. Because deep inside, those patterns match the identity they have built over time. But once you understand this, you realize something powerful. If identity controls behavior, then changing your identity changes your life. You don't need to fight your habits. You simply need to become the person who naturally lives differently. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined," you begin saying, "I am a disciplined person." Instead of saying, "I want to be confident," you begin saying, "I am someone who faces challenges." And slowly, your brain begins adjusting to that new identity. Because once the mind accepts a new story, it begins searching for evidence to support it. That is the beginning of true transformation. But changing identity requires something difficult. You must confront the old beliefs that built your current one. And those beliefs often run deeper than you think. Every limitation in your life began as a belief. Not a fact, a belief. Somewhere along your journey, something happened. Maybe someone criticized you. Maybe you failed at something important. Maybe you experienced rejection. And in that moment, your mind created a conclusion. A belief. It might have sounded like, "I'm not good enough. I'm not smart. I'm bad with money. I always mess things up." And once the brain creates a belief, it begins protecting it. Your mind filters reality through that belief. If you believe you are unlucky, your brain notices every bad event. But it ignores every opportunity. If you believe people don't respect you, your brain interprets neutral situations as disrespect. You see what you expect to see. This is called confirmation bias. And it is one of the strongest forces shaping your reality. But here is the truth that can set you free. Most beliefs are not objectively true. They're simply stories repeated so often that they feel real. Imagine if a child falls while learning to walk. If that child immediately believed, "I'm not meant to walk," they would never try again. But children don't do that. They fall, they try again, they fall again, and eventually they walk. Somewhere along the journey into adulthood, many people stop trying, not because they cannot succeed, but because they believe they cannot. This is why reprogramming your mind requires something courageous. You must question the beliefs you have always accepted. Ask yourself, who told me this belief? Is it objectively true, or was it formed during a moment of pain? Many beliefs are simply emotional scars disguised as truths. And once you begin questioning them, they lose their power. But removing a belief is only half the process. You must replace it because the brain cannot operate without a story. So if you remove a limiting belief, you must install an empowering one. Instead of, "I always fail," you install, "Every attempt makes me stronger." Instead of, "I am not confident," you install, "Confidence grows with action." Instead of, "I can't change," you install, "My brain is capable of learning anything." And slowly, your internal dialogue begins to shift. Your thoughts begin to change. Your behavior begins to follow. Because beliefs are the blueprints of behavior. But even with new beliefs, there is another powerful force shaping your life. Your habits. And habits are where true reprogramming happens. Your life is not built by dramatic moments. It is built by daily repetitions. Small actions repeated consistently. These repetitions create neural pathways in your brain. Every time you repeat a thought, that pathway becomes stronger. Every time you repeat a habit, Your brain becomes more efficient at performing it. This is why bad habits feel automatic. Your brain has practiced them thousands of times. But this principle works in your favor too, because new habits create new neural pathways, and with repetition, those pathways become the default. This is how you reprogram your mind. Not through sudden motivation, but through consistent rewiring. Start with small actions. Wake up and immediately choose one empowering thought. Write down your goals. Train your body. Control your breathing. Limit negative information. Expose your mind to powerful ideas. These small actions slowly reshape your brain, over weeks and months. Your default thinking changes. Your emotional responses change. Your confidence changes. And eventually, your identity changes. But there is another skill that separates those who master their minds from those who remain controlled by it: the ability to control emotion. Most people believe emotions control them. But emotions are simply signals. Signals created by thoughts. If your thoughts are fearful, you feel anxiety. If your thoughts are grateful, you feel peace. If your thoughts are determined, you feel power. Your emotions are the echo of your thinking. But here is the problem. Most people never question their thoughts. They assume every thought is true. But thoughts are not commands. They are suggestions. And you have the power to accept or reject them. Imagine a negative thought appears. You will fail. Instead of believing it, you observe it. You say, "That is just a thought." And the moment you create that distance, you regain control. You realize something profound. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. And the observer can choose which thoughts to strengthen. This awareness is the beginning of emotional mastery. Because once you stop blindly believing your thoughts, your emotions stop controlling you. You become calm during chaos, focused during pressure, stable during uncertainty, and that stability gives you a tremendous advantage in life. But emotional mastery alone is not enough, because the greatest transformation happens when you shift something deeper: your identity. Most people try to change their life by changing their environment. But the real transformation happens when you change who you believe you are. Imagine someone who believes they're a healthy person. They don't force themselves to exercise. They simply live in alignment with their identity. Imagine someone who believes they're disciplined. They don't rely on motivation. They simply act according to who they believe they are. Your actions always move toward your identity. So if you want a new life, you must design a new identity. Ask yourself, who do I want to become? What traits does that person have? How does that person think? How does that person act during challenges? Then begin acting like that person today, even before you feel ready, because identity is built through action. Every time you act in alignment with your future self, you strengthen that identity. And over time, the old identity fades away, until one day, you realize something incredible. You are no longer the person you used to be. Your mind is stronger. Your thinking is clearer. Your behavior is different. You have rewritten the internal program that once controlled your life. But the final step of this transformation requires consistency. Because reprogramming the mind is not a single decision. It is a daily practice. If you want to transform your mind, commit to the next 30 days. Day 1. Awareness. Observe your thoughts without judgment. Day 2. Belief audit. Write down the beliefs limiting you. Day 3. Replace beliefs. Create empowering alternatives. Day 4. Identity design. Define the person you want to become. Day 5. Habit creation. Install one small empowering habit. Days 6 to 15. Repeat positive thinking patterns. Days 16 to 25. Strengthen discipline through daily action. Days 26 to 30. Begin living fully as your new identity. By the end of these 30 days, something inside you will begin to change. Your thinking will shift. Your confidence will grow. Your actions will align with a new version of yourself. And the life that once seemed impossible will begin to feel natural. Because the most powerful transformation in life is not changing the world around you. It is rewriting the mind within you. Remember this. Your mind is not your enemy. It is a tool, and like any tool, it works according to the instructions it receives. For years, your mind may have been running old programs. Programs created by fear, by doubt, by past experiences. But today you learned something powerful. Those programs are not permanent. They can be rewritten. You can install new beliefs, new habits, a new identity. And once your mind begins working for you instead of against you, everything changes. Your actions change. Your opportunities change. Your life changes. Because the greatest power you will ever possess is the ability to reprogram the way you think.